So, I guess I should probably do a review of this movie too. I just saw this today. Like it was a really early showing. Mom really wanted to see it, so we were looking for showings, and Mom was like, "Ooh, there's a showing at like 10:45." And I don't like to see movies early in the day at all because the first thing that I do when I go to see a movie is I get a no. But the first thing I do when I wake up out of bed is get a giant glass of water and drink it because my throat gets really sore. And then after I have that giant glass of water, like you gotta give me at least an hour before I'm ready to see a movie. That's just the way that my system works. Like it's like I can't have any time, and I really hate to walk out of movies. Unfortunately, twice during this film I had to walk out, and I don't think I missed much. Mom told me I didn't miss that much. But unfortunately, that is what happened. But yeah, so I always have such a hard time reviewing documentaries. I reviewed a few. I reviewed a couple of documentaries on my blog, and I think what's so hard about it is it's just like when you're reviewing a documentary, what can you really say? Like, there's no story or characters or filmmaking. I mean, there is filmmaking techniques, but not in the way that you see in a traditional narrative film. And so, really, a lot of it just boils down to does the subject matter interest you or not? Um, and all art is subjective, and documentaries are definitely a part of that. But documentaries, there is a definite wall between documentaries and traditional narrative films. And this is a very good film. I like this film, and I've liked a lot of the documentaries that I've watched, but I don't really know what goes into them defining what makes a good documentary versus what makes a bad documentary. Um, a lot of it does just boil down to personal preference. So I really loved this documentary, which is a little bit weird because I never really watched Mister Rogers' Neighborhood growing up. Uh, I'm not sure. I think I was born just a little bit too late. Was already sort of dying and off the air by the time I got around to watching it. And then when I like heard about it, it just always seemed, I don't know, like I would watch when I was very young. I have vague memories of watching Teletubbies and Sesame Street and Blue's Clues. That was the one I watched all the time. But I never really watched Mister Rogers' Neighborhood that much, and I don't know why. Um, Looking back on it, I think I might have missed a bit of it. I, of course, I'm aware of the show. I've seen enough. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. This neighborhood, by the way, is what they say. You look on Good Mythical Morning. They talk about it's definitely this neighborhood. We just remember the neighborhood because it feels like it fits better. But so so this is a very good documentary, and what I like about it is it gives a very real insight into who Mr. Rogers was as a man. Because a lot of times you see the image of Mr. Rogers, and he almost seems like a caricature of this ridiculously happy, carefree man. And sometimes you wonder, well, maybe when the camera stopped rolling, he suddenly became a jerk. And this documentary really shows that's not true. He wasn't a jerk. He was every bit a very nice man, as you saw on TV. But at the same time, he was human. He had flaws, and he did get angry, and he just masked his anger in the world around him. That often through his puppetry and through his playing piano, he would sometimes get out the real world frustrations that he had uh, in ways that were healthy. And it is it is interesting to watch not only who this person was, but the kind of but how this man and this show changed so many people. And I feel that, we when we think of Mr. Rogers, we just think of this impossibly nice man. And you might say, like, I saw one review of this beforehand that was like, oh, the world needs more people like this. And on the one hand, you kind of think, well, after watching this movie, like, are we going to get more people like Mr. Rogers? He seems like very much a once-in-a-lifetime kind of person, that there was no one else like him. No one is ever going to replace Mr. Rogers. And I think that is certainly true, but we can take the lessons that he taught us. And one thing that I appreciate about him was that he was not shy about sharing very real-world dark issues with kids. And not scaring kids, but telling them about the real world and the problems that we would encounter later on in life, but in a way that would allow us to prepare us for them. There's one scene in particular that I'm not going to give away, but it touched me in such a personal place. I just burst out crying in the theater, and I had to hug my mom who was sitting next to me. This is a movie where you definitely are going to want to bring tissues. It is a very touching story. So I don't know what else to say, really. Is this going to be a player for Best Documentary at the Oscars? I hope it is. I haven't seen like any other documentaries this year, but I hope it is. It is a well-made film, and it is a really interesting to look at this man. Because the thing with documentaries is, there's a feeling of, why does this story need to be told? And with Mr. Rogers, I feel it's important that we got this documentary. I feel it's important that people look back on this man and realize what an extraordinary man he was, but also at the same time, he was human. Like, he was, I hear we're supposed to get a biography about him, a biopic with Tom Hanks, and I don't know if, Tom Hanks is a great actor, but I don't know if he could really play that. Actually, I was thinking about what actor would be a good fit to play Mr. Rogers, and the closest thing I thought of was Jim Parsons, because I think he sort of has the voice down. He's the only actor I can think of that would somewhat be able to replicate the voice. I don't know. So, Mr. Rogers, Won't You Be My Neighbor it's a feel-good movie, but it's also going to make you cry, and it might make you think a little bit about the attributes that you use in your life. And I don't know. I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Rogers. I knew very, very little about him before I watched the film, but I enjoyed it. It is a good movie. It's not a boring movie. Sometimes documentaries can get boring, and this is not that. This is a very sweet movie about a very sweet human, and I highly recommend it. So if you can manage to be his neighbor, I would recommend that you do. Go see the movie. Bye.